Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Dawson. Welcome to Leader Talk. This show is proudly brought to you by Brainiact. Each week we are meeting with incredible leaders from around the world to discuss all things leadership and business insights. Each person coming on this talk show has given up their valuable time for one very clear purpose: to give back to small and medium business owners. Today, my guest co-host, Roger Jowett, former Motion Asia Pacific CEO and current Brainiact mascot franchise partner, and I are fortunate to chat to our guest speaker, Dan Cahill. Dan was a former McDonald's manager and now thrives as a regional franchisor for Jim's Mowing. Under the Jim's Mowing franchise, Dan's business soared with incredible weekly sales reaching $17,000 to $21,000. Dan is here today to share his inspiring entrepreneurial journey with us and teach us all that with determination and guidance, entrepreneurial dreams can become a reality. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thanks for having me, Natalie.
We are excited to have you on. And before we delve down into your incredible journey, we have two fun questions that we'd love to ask you, as we do with all our guests. And the first one that we're keen to know is, as a child, what did you want to be when you grow up?
I don't know if the answer's all that exciting. Truthfully, I didn't expect much from myself when I was younger. I would have been happy if I was a factory worker, like my old man. Truthfully, I think I just wanted some sort of job. My main focus was I really wanted to be a good dad. So I never really was career driven when I was a kid. I never really had an idea of what sort of job I wanted to do, but I certainly knew that I wanted to be a really good father.
That's a brilliant answer. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And what about, where will we find you when you are not at work?
Yep. So as you can probably imagine from that last answer, you'll find me with my kids. So I've got two daughters at the moment, and my wife is pregnant at the moment with twins. So that's really exciting for us.
Wow! Congratulations.
So I'm excited to spend time with my daughters at the moment. I'm actually been spending a lot of time in the backyard building them a double-story cubby house.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, congratulations. Busy times ahead.
Yeah, it certainly is, yeah.
You'll need a bigger car and a bigger house, probably.
I think so, absolutely. I definitely will.
And what about, I've given a really quick intro to you at the beginning, but there is so much to your journey, and we're going to delve into that obviously during the show. But can you share with us a bit about your background, even before you started with Jim's Mowing, and then perhaps what even led you to consider, entrepreneurship and going out on your own, and then even franchising?
Yeah, okay. No
Big
worries.
story.
It certainly is. So I worked my way up through McDonald's as a crew person, which is where I met my wife. She was my restaurant manager, and as soon as I met her, I knew she was the one. And so I sort of chased her down. She didn't really have a choice, in my opinion. I think I was very persistent with her. And I worked my way through McDonald's and eventually became a manager. And I was managing my own restaurant at one point in Frankston. And then the atmosphere and the environment became quite negative, especially with people from higher up roles in national office. And it pushed me to start thinking about other positions or other job opportunities that I could put myself into. So I had a short stint as about a year. I was a roof plumber. Now I thought I was a hard worker at McDonald's, and I learned very quickly that I was not. So what I went through roof plumbing was extremely difficult. Really hot days, 40-degree weather, standing on tin metal roofing, and working through that day in, day out. I started to think, geez, there's got to be something better than this. This isn't the answer. And I started thinking back about what it was that I was doing at McDonald's and how I could have done it better. And I learned that the way I was managing probably wasn't efficient enough. I don't think I was delegating anywhere near as much as I should have been. And I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. So I come up with a decision to go back to McDonald's. But at this point, I wanted to take it really seriously and really try my new management, the way I was going to manage in McDonald's. And so I decided to get a job at the head office of McDonald's. So I spoke to a few people that I knew from that national office. And sure enough, I was able to get a job at head office, which was about a 50-minute drive away. So it wasn't convenient, but it was needed to make sure I stayed on track to become the best manager I could. And then from doing that, I did a really good job there. They actually called me Dan the Delegator for a while there because I became so good and so efficient at getting other people to do the work for me. And then they moved me to the worst running McDonald's store in Victoria at the time, which was Corridor McDonald's. And so I moved there with another manager, and us two together, we fixed that store up very quickly. And then again, the atmosphere became a little bit negative, and I started thinking, well, I think I could do a decent job at running a business. I think that I'd be good at this. I had a lot of confidence by that point, which is what led me to moving on to, sort of moved me on to going into Jim's Mowing. I don't know if you want me to tell you a story about my wife and how it all sort of happened, or.
Yeah, please, because that's your purpose. So we'd love to hear it.
Okay, cool. So me and my wife were both still working at McDonald's. We're both in very negative atmospheres. And I seen that she was becoming very unhappy with her work life as well as her home life, because we didn't have much of a home life. She'd just given birth to our first daughter, Isla, and we had another little daughter on the way, Annie. And it's almost like I had this epiphany moment where I went, if I look at 5 years in the future, where am I going to be? And the answer that I was getting was, it's not going to be great. You know, I'm working at McDonald's earning very little income. I've got a wife that's unhappy now, and she's probably only going to be unhappier later, especially with our financial struggles. And I went, well, how do I make my wife happy? That needs to be like first and foremost. What do I do? And I realized that my wife was always happy when she was around her family. And so I went, well, I'm gonna do something, and I'm gonna make sure I make her happy. So I come up with an idea. There was an auction across the street from my wife's mum and dad's house at the time, and they were all talking about it because they wanted to know how much their house was worth as well, naturally. And so we were like, oh yeah, that sounds cool, you know. But I had an idea which I wasn't going to tell my wife, because she would have killed me if she found out, and she would have said no straight away. But I was going to buy this house. So I went to the auction, first auction I've ever been to, and sure enough, I bought the house, and I was so proud of it. But I spent about an extra $100,000 on the house than what it was worth. So I was now stuck with a mortgage that was over 30 years and $1,000 a week, which at working at McDonald's would have been extremely difficult to pay off, as well as take care of any of our other bills and just everyday living expenses. So I bought this house, which put me in a better position with my wife. She was now happier, but we needed to figure out how to pay for it, which is what led me to Jim's Mowing. So eventually I started up with Jim's Mowing, and I worked really, really hard, as you guys can probably imagine. Yeah.
It's an incredible story, and that purpose that got you, from being the McDonald's manager to, taking a huge risk and starting your own business. And that's what I want to ask you, because a lot of people put their hand up and they want to be business owners, but we know it's not that difficult even to start up. There are challenges there. So from your experiences, can you tell us a bit about the challenges you faced when even starting out at Jim's Mowing? I mean, it's not just a matter of, I left my job and now I'm going to start here. I'm sure there were situations and there were factors, whether it was finances and things, that were a huge challenge at the beginning.
Yeah, well, the first one was to be able to buy that business with Jim's Mowing. We actually had to get the money from my mother-in-law, which was a challenge in itself. So we couldn't afford it. So I asked my wife to ask her for me because I wasn't going to have that awkward conversation. And sure enough, they agreed to it, because otherwise I think they would have had some pretty unhappy neighbours. So they ended up sorting that out for us, the finance of the business. And then the next challenge was that we were already in a substantial amount of debt. So we needed to pay off that debt. So basically I had to work 7 days a week just to get ourselves to a point where we could afford to pay the mortgage. And the reason is because you go and do a job, but you don't get paid straight away for the job. Some customers take a week or 2 weeks or a month to pay you. So I was working constantly overtime just to be able to get money coming in instantly, so we could pay our mortgage on time and pay our bills and all the rest of it. And that sort of led me into, I suppose, the mindset that I developed, which was to work all the time, 7 days a week. So I learned that when I took a Sunday off, I was always sore on a Monday. So I went, well, if I work every day, I won't be sore. So I just worked every day. So 7 days a week. And my idea was to continuously improve. And I figured if I mowed some lawns, then I'd make some money. But if I mowed a lot of lawns, I was going to make a lot of money, which was the basis of what I did. And sure enough, it worked out. So I worked for about 1.5 years straight, 7 days a week, just constantly at it, growing that business, which put me in a much, much better position, as you can probably imagine.
And talk us through the trigger point to go from 7 days a week back to 5. How did that pan out?
I'll let you know when I'm there. No. So the trigger point was actually I had a burnout. I had a really, really serious burnout, and it put me into a really bad state where I couldn't even. I didn't feel like myself. I wasn't the Dan that I knew. I was just this negative person that was just exhausted and tired and emotional all the time. And, I'd come home from work and I'd be crying. And, my wife had to come out to the car and like I'd put my arms around her shoulders and she'd walk me inside because my body was so worn out. And so I'd hop straight into an Epsom salt bath and have to sit in there for like an hour. She'd bring me dinner while I was in the bath and I'd go straight to sleep. So as you can imagine, after 1.5 years of doing that, it played a serious mental toll on me, which was around the time of COVID. And I ended up sitting. It was probably a good thing that COVID happened, because I sat in my room for about 3 months straight, trying to figure out what I was doing and if I'd made the right decision, and dealing with a lot of emotional issues that I had from early stages in my life, as well as that point as well. Which is where I come up with a model of building the business based on regular mows. So I ended up creating mowing rounds, which is as basic as I can explain it, is a mowing round is 80 regular clients that get their lawns mowed every 2 weeks. And you should be making about $3,500 a week from those clients, including their add-on sales. So I created a mowing round and got my brother to run that mowing round, and he'd make me $3,500 a week from it. And then I would continue doing work on the side and building up more clients and try and build another mowing round while I was also doing the once-off work. And then once I'd done that, I went and hired another employee, which was my brother's best friend. And so he then run that mowing round and made me $3,500 a week as well. And then sure enough, that's how I built it. So I built up 6 mowing rounds within the space of 3 years, which is initially what made me earn over $20,000 a week as a franchisee.
Okay. So you got into this delegating mode within your franchise.
I certainly did. Yeah, I had taken on way too much stress in the past, and I had seen that it put me into a really bad headspace. So I went, well, how can I get other people to work for me and make it beneficial for myself? So it worked out really, really well, putting the responsibility onto them, and it meant that I was able to sit back a little bit. And I still wanted to work hard, so I found different things to be able to work hard in the business. To I suppose I wasn't so tunnel visioned anymore. I could focus on the other things that I needed to focus on. So which really just helped me grow the business that much quicker.
Yeah. Okay.
So if we were to, for our listeners here listening, so obviously we're meeting with you in 2023, and you bought the franchise in 2018. The Dan of today, is there any advice you'd give to the Dan in January 2018, when you worked all those long hours and really it took its toll? What would you say to yourself back then? Anything that we could learn from that?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to remember, if I was working 7 days a week and I had 2 daughters at the time, that meant I was sacrificing a lot of time with my daughters, and my main goal was always to be a good dad. And I suppose I probably was very tunnel vision back then as well. I would go back to that same Dan and just say, hey, you don't need to work 7 days a week. Like, you will eventually get to where you need to get to. It may take a little bit longer, but maybe you can work 6 days a week. Maybe you can even work 5 days a week. But I think it's most important that you spend time at with your kids, especially when they're growing up. So I did have a lot of sacrifices, and I regret that decision to work nonstop because I missed those years with my daughters. So if I could change one thing, I'd go back and probably work 6 or even, if not 5 days a week. And just, it would take me a bit longer to be able to get to where I am now. So
it's a long game. Yeah. I think one of the questions that frequently asked to coaching clients is their ability to take a 2-week vacation, to just step away from their business, come back to maybe a pile of things to do, but the business can keep moving during their absence. Hopefully the phone's off.
Yes.
And you see different reactions. Obviously, some cannot imagine that 2 weeks out, and others know they can get there. So delegation, absolutely critical. It sounds like you've learned the hard way with some.
I certainly have. But I also remember that. I mean, throughout my 20s, I just turned 30 a couple of months ago. But throughout my whole 20s, I was just working nonstop. And I think that's I suppose, a bit of an indicator as to why it is that I've done so well at an earlier age, where a lot of my friends were, watching reruns of their TV shows, their favorite TV shows. They'd be playing video games. They'd be heading out to the pubs and, working on cars that they probably couldn't afford to really purchase those cars in the first place, and then trying to fix problems that happen with those cars. And like a lot of people spend a lot of time doing stuff that, doesn't really benefit them and build them as a person, where me and my wife always sort of had that same mentality where we both wanted to better our lives. And so I think by surrounding ourselves with each other and other like-minded people, I didn't feel like I sacrificed any of those things. I didn't feel like I sacrificed not watching those TV shows and working on those cars and going to the gym and that, because the people that I surrounded myself with were doing what I was doing. So I felt like I was doing the right thing, where if I wasn't surrounding myself with those sorts of people, who knows, I may have wanted to go and buy a really nice fancy car because I wanted to keep up with the Joneses, or do all that sort of stuff. But I think a lot of it comes down to who you're spending your time with.
And so there's no luck in this journey, Natalie, Dan. I mean, there's a lot of hard work to get down to where he is.
A lot of bloody hard work. So I genuinely believe that I have probably the worst luck going around. Any time that there could be bad luck, there is bad luck for me. And it's sort of like Murphy's Law. Anything that could go wrong will go wrong. And that's been my whole life, basically. And so from that, I've learned that no matter what, something will go wrong if it can. And so I've just gone, well, how do I combat that? How do I make sure that I deal with that as best as I possibly can? And it means that I over-prepare for every situation that I go into now, because I'm so used to things going wrong. Even when I over-prepare, though, something always goes wrong still. But it in my mind, I go, well, I've learned from that now, and I now know what to look out for next time I deal with that challenge, because I'm ready for it. So I'll prepare for that next thing as well. So it certainly isn't a luck thing. It'd be nice if I was a lucky person. That'd be lovely. But it's just the mentality that of working hard to better my life, my wife's life, and my kids' life.
Yeah.
And that's just the thing, when people look at your story, they only need to do a Google search, Dan Cahill, Jim's Mowing, and there comes up your success stories and, videos and all sorts of things. And they'd look at who you are now, and they would just exactly what Roger say, go, oh, Dan's so lucky. And it's that they don't look at all of this, all this hard work and sacrifices and all those things that went into building this business.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people do think I'm quite lucky to be in the position I'm in. Being business partners with Jim for Jim's Mowing Northern and Eastern Australia, a lot of people go, because I was doing that when I was in my 20s, obviously, they'd go, oh, you're very lucky, but I think Jim just seen my work ethic, and I think he thought it was a smart business move on his behalf to be able to do that with me. And I think it was because I made him a lot of money being able to be in this role now. So, and it's worked out very well for both of us.
And you're now looking after, I think, over 150 franchisees or operators, yeah?
Yeah, I've got 163 franchisees that I'm operating now, and we've bought. I've bought 5 regions in Jim's Mowing. So as a franchisor now instead of a franchisee.
Yeah.
So my idea was the first region I bought was a pretty well established business, but it was very underdeveloped. And I seen a lot of potential in it, and I knew I could make a lot more sales. I knew that we had a lot of demand from clients that weren't getting service. There was a lot of clients, over half the amount of clients that called the call center were told that we don't have anyone that could service them in that area, which is why I bought that region first. And I went, well, if we've got huge demand for clients, then we just need to find the supply for it. And the supply is the franchisee. So I went, well, if I buy that region, I can find the franchisees. I'm sure of it. And I'll be able to teach them what I've done and put my systems in place and make sure I make them a lot of money from doing it. So I bought that region with Jim. But that region was probably the hardest one to run because it already was a very well-established region with good support that was already in it. People had very high expectations of what I should be doing in the role. And if I didn't do things to the exact of what the last franchisor was doing, then I was doing something wrong. So it took me a while to be able to, because I'm very by the book, so to be able to put my systems and procedures, I suppose, in place and get everyone to learn how it is that I manage the region. But then once I had started developing that region and increasing the amount of franchisees and handling, the unserviced work, then Jim went, "You've done a fantastic job with this. Do you want to buy more regions with me?" So we ended up buying, the next one was Northern Queensland, and that one was much easier to take on because it had terrible support before I'd come on. So as soon as I came on, everyone was like, "Geez, Dan, you're fantastic." Yeah. And because it had a limited number of franchisees, it meant that I could bring on a lot more franchisees to be able to service the work. And so that was my whole mindset. So when I started as a franchisor, I started with 52 franchisees, and we now have over 163 in just now on 2 years. Yeah. And
talk to us about finding the right next person to grow your business. Just talk us through the things you look for, the things that are red flags.
Yep. So when I'm selling businesses to people, I'm very particular with the sort of franchisee that I want to be able to sell a business to, because I'm the person that's coaching them the whole way through. And I'm spending a lot of my time and sacrificing a lot of my time that I could be spending with my kids teaching this person how to run a business. So if I'm going to be spending time with this person and teaching them and making sure that they do really quite well out of business, and I want to make sure that I'm enjoying my time that I've got with them. So I'm very particular with the sort of franchisee I bring on. I don't want to bring on anyone that's negative or anyone that has, I suppose, doesn't treat me with respect from the get-go. I think there's 2 types of people out there from what I've noticed. There's people that are instantly born with respect and treat people with respect from the start. And they're great for customer service. And then there's people that believe that you need to earn their respect before they treat you with any respect at all. And so those sorts of people, I don't think they're matched very well for customer service. I'm sure they'd be great in other jobs, but when you're dealing with customers directly, that sort of attitude doesn't get you very far. Okay. So I'm very careful to make sure I don't bring on those sorts of people, just because it means that I have an uphill battle to be able to work with them, because from the very get-go, they already don't treat me with respect. So how are they going to do it with clients? So I do reject quite a fair few franchisee or inquiries that come through. And I tell them straight up that I don't think they're the right fit for my region, and I'm not a fan of their character. And I suppose that, it gets me in a little bit of trouble sometimes when you're that blunt. So nearly every time they end up going to the gym and complaining to Jim that I won't sell them a business. But Jim obviously knows me very, very well by now, and he goes, "Well, Dan's obviously got the opportunity to sell your business. He doesn't have to." Not a lot of people do that. Not a lot of people reject people's money to be able to buy a business. But I've learned that from the environments that I've been, especially at McDonald's, culture is everything. So I want to make sure that I've got a positive culture within all of my businesses. So especially this one. So From having brought on only positive franchisees, it's almost like it runs itself now because they all help each other out and they all teach each other. So it makes my job a lot easier. And every time I speak to someone, it's a good conversation. So I'm in a better mental state of mind because I'm happy when I'm speaking to my franchisees.
So that ability to say no is absolutely pivotal, I think, in any business. Should you always be saying yes and learning to say no. Yeah.
So it's not about earning the dollars in that instant moment for me. It's I know that my mental health is always first priority, and I'm not going to be in business very long if I don't have very good mental health. So I need to do whatever it takes to be able to ensure I'm always happy doing this role.
And is it difficult to say no, Dan? Like, business owners, regardless if you're a franchisor or, an electrician running a business or a plumber, that saying no to anything, jobs, or like you said, money coming in, purchases, it's difficult to say no. Do you have any tricks or tips that you can help business owners?
Yeah, each purchase is probably increases my net value by about maybe 13 or 14,000. So it's obviously not very easy to say no because you go, well, geez, that would really be nice right now. But when I first started the role, it certainly wasn't easy. But I know that it's best for my franchisees as well. They're already in the region. They don't want anyone that's negative to be their neighboring franchisee because I believe negativity spreads like an infection. So as soon as you get one, it turns other people negative as well. So it's not just for me that I'm doing it, it's for my franchisees as well. And knowing that I have that responsibility makes it a lot easier to make that call.
I think my experience as well, if I just chip in, is that one of the key things as a leader is to be consistent. So when you've got your own parameters for a yes or a no, the ability to think, will I use this logic in a similar scenario next month, next year? Is this me? Is this how I operate? Because if you are volatile and it's yes today, no tomorrow, it can get pretty messy. So it's linked, I think, to being consistent, and consistency as a trait for leaders does bring a lot of respect and trust and following, obviously.
It certainly does. It makes it much easier in my role. People know exactly what to expect from me, so they know that there's no grey areas. I don't like to work in grey areas. I like things to have system and set ways that we do things. So, if they've things that they may have got away with in the past, they know they're not going to get away with now as easily. So I'm not wasting my time telling people no all the time because they already know the answer. So it does make it easy to be able to manage this region as well. Yeah.
And it also assists with the team dynamics. You mentioned, they all support each other, or the franchisees support each other. Is that kind of what guides your decisions to say yes and no?
Absolutely. Yeah. So they all help each other out. We've got mentors in the regions that teach people how to mow lawns and how to run their businesses. And we end up, I've got a good culture. I believe we've got a good culture in the business that I've built. And the reason I say is because, well, I learned this from my franchise business, but everything that you do in your business is the responsibility is on you. If it's going bad, it's the responsibility is on you. If it's going good, the responsibility is on you. You're in charge of all the decisions that happen in your business and everything that happens from it. And so in my business, I go, well, I want everyone to really enjoy working here. So we do like cricket days and we catch up for a barbecue, play cricket. I'm running a region that's based in Queensland, Northern Territory, and regional New South Wales. And there's a lot of, as you can probably imagine, a lot of old school Aussie sort of blokes and that I'm dealing with. And so, we get together, we have barbecues, they all help each other out, they all go to each other's factories and even when I'm not there, they do it and they all help benefit each other. And I think having that positive culture is key to running any business. And I learned that, as I said, from when I was working at McDonald. So I was very lucky I learned that at a very early stage.
Yeah. And with your experience, obviously as a franchisor, meeting people that want to start businesses, Jim's Mowing, do you think that everyone can be a business owner? I think this is a really important question because, I'm keen to know your answer on this because a lot of people, want to own a business and sometimes they don't realize it's hard, But do you think from your experience and judging by the calls you get and the inquiries that come through, can everyone be a business owner?
No, definitely not. And I learned that the hard way, actually. I learned that from one of my best friends. I ended up selling him a business from when I was a franchisee. So I sold him a split of my original business, thinking I was doing the right thing. It was already making $3,500 a week every week. All he had to do was go do the jobs. But he had an employee mindset. And some people have an employer mindset, some people have an employee mindset, but he literally couldn't get out of bed if he didn't know what time he was starting. But when you're your own business owner, you're the person that tells you what time you're starting. So seeing him fail in his business from a business that should have been quite simple to run, I felt guilty. I felt really, really guilty and really terrible about myself doing that. And I wanted to make sure I never did that to anyone ever again, because I don't like having that feeling. Especially when there's something that I can do to control it. So every time I'm looking out for new franchisees, I go, well, do I think that you can run this business? Do I think that you're the sort of person that can take on that responsibility and get yourself out of bed and give good quality service and support to these clients? And if the answer is no, well, I'm not going to sell my business. I'm not going to let that rest on my conscience. No way.
Yeah, and I think that mindset, transitioning from an employee mindset to a business owner mindset, it's so crucial in that entrepreneurial journey. Were there any changes that were crucial that you can share with us, that you kind of any important changes that you had to make in your transition from, being a McDonald's manager to exactly where you are now? I can only imagine that it was a journey in itself.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm very, very lucky I have the wife that I do, because she keeps me on track. I get distracted very, very easily. So she's a very organized person. So if she sees that I'm starting to become lazy or get distracted, she keeps me on track. But I've had other issues, like, as you can see, like the Post-it notes behind me. I'm certainly not the sharpest tool in the shed, and I'm extremely unorganized, terrible with computers. I was a high school dropout. I was expelled from my first high school and dropped out of my second one. And so I needed to find ways that I could manage, what my limitations were. And so these Post-it notes, for example, I don't use computers, so everything goes on a Post-it note for me because I need it right in front of my face. If it's not in front of my face, I forget about it. So I certainly did have limitations in that aspect to be able to do this sort of role. So and then with the Post-it notes, I ended up putting them on the wall in front of me, and then I ran out of room on the wall that was in front of me. So I filled up the rest of the wall, and then by the time that was full, I went to the next wall and the next wall, and there's 4 walls in the room, and I filled all the walls. And I ran out of room, so I ended up having to come up with another idea to be able to hold these Post-it notes. So I created folders to put them all into, and so I've got thousands of Post-it notes around at the moment. I'm probably trying to figure out a new system to be able to keep on top of everything, because if anyone walked in here, they'd think I was nuts. So limitations, yes, certainly, but I just find ways around them. I'm always trying to find a way to improve what I'm doing every week, if not every day.
And what do you enjoy most about running the size of business that you do today?
I like knowing that I'm able to help out a lot more people running the size of the business that I am running now. And it also helps me. I like always being busy. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but if I'm not busy, I'm usually doing something that means nothing. I could be sitting there playing a phone game or scrolling Facebook, the news feed, for just hours on end. So this sort of keeps me in check. And obviously the money's great. So that definitely does help running a larger business.
Yeah. And you mentioned before a continuous improvement, continuous learning. If I'm correct, you also studied horticulture as part of your kind of continuous improvement. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Go on.
I was just going to say, for business owners, that important notion of constantly learning, like we constantly need to learn, we need to better ourselves. How important is that for a business owner and all our listeners tuning in today?
Yeah, so I did do a horticulture course, and I thought that was great. I thought that I got more use out of the business management course that I completed. I thought that was a lot more helpful. I learned very early on to create high demand in my business. When you have high demand in a business, you're a lot more free. So the way that I've built my businesses, and even as a franchisee with my mowing rounds, that I had my 6 mowing rounds, was I would always go out of my way to create as much high demand as I possibly could, and market as much to be able to create that demand. And then with that high demand, where you can't keep up with the work, you can then lift your prices up. So I would increase my prices, and then once I had done that, you can sort through the customers that you do and don't want. Same way that I reject a lot of franchisees, I also reject a lot of clients and move a lot of clients on. So my trick is I'd bring on 2 new clients, and then when I bring on 2 new clients that I was happy with, I'd remove one that I didn't want to deal with. And that's how I continued building the business. So it actually got me excited to get rid of clients, believe it or not. And so that's a big reason why I built the business as quickly as I did, because I'd go, geez, I really dislike doing work for this client here. All right, I know what I need to do. I need to bring on 2 new regulars, and then I can get rid of them. So I get really excited to bring on these 2 new clients. So yeah, I suppose that's the sort of mindset that I had running my business. So.
And you talk about creating high demand. So there's a salesman in you. I mean, you've got out there and drummed up.
Yeah, I do a lot of marketing. So I like one of them, for example, is like my contact marketing. So how I was able to build my business so quickly was I've got these 10 different marketing points that I touch on whenever I'm building a new business or a new round or whatever it is. And so contact marketing, a good example is I have contacts that will continuously feed me work. So they could be real estate agents and property managers. They could be support coordinators for NDIS or case managers for different insurance companies. And so what I'll do is I'll go out and I'll meet them, which is the first step. So I'll meet like the real estate agents in person, or if they're a support coordinator or a case manager, I'll speak to them on the phone, I'll send them an email, and I'll let them know I'm looking for work, and I'll tell them a bit about my story. And I've then made that first interaction, but then I've become very persistent until they become a contact of mine. And so all my local real estate agents, I want to make sure I get work from every single one of them. So I will then go out there again 2 weeks later and say, "G'day, how you going? Good to see you again. Just let you know, I'm still looking for work, basically." And you have to create that relationship, get on the phone, speak to the case managers and support coordinators. And then that's another touch point done. And then 2 weeks later or a month later, again, I'm on them, and I'm not stopping until they become a contact of mine. Because once they become a contact, they're going to continuously feed work straight through to you. So because you have that good rapport with them. So that's one of the things that I did to be able to build my business as quickly as I did. But I've got 10 different marketing tips that I utilize constantly to be able.
And you're teaching your franchisees those sales growth.
Absolutely. Well. Yeah. Yep. And so when I was building my business, I didn't really want to take on the once-off work when I had my mowing rounds. I don't like doing the once-off work, especially like hand weeding. I can't stand hand weeding. I don't know anyone that can, that does like doing that sort of work. Any of the garden cleanup. So I was focusing on building up regular clients, because regular clients usually work out to be about $2,000 to $2.5 grand a year. Where once-off jobs, the average once-off job is worth about $300 for the job, and then you never really see the client again. So I'd rather have that. The regular income coming in, although you don't get instant cash generation, like huge chunks of it straight away, you do get it over a longer span of time. So whenever those once-off jobs would come through, if I didn't want to do them, I was feeding them out to other franchisees in my area to help them out. So they used to love me for it, because I was marketing to be able to bring on regular clients. And as a byproduct, of course, I brought on a lot of once-off work, which I didn't want to do, so I just passed it on to other people.
Yeah.
So with that high demand, I mean, it gives you complete freedom to build your business exactly how you want to.
Yeah.
Clearly a great salesman. I agree, Roger, because, we hear business owners that hope they get the contract, or they hope, they get work for the next week. For anyone that's tuning in right now and they're hoping to win their next job, Dan, your approach was incredible. What advice do you have for them? They're just sitting there. They've put out their quote, and they're just hoping they beat, their competitors in this.
I don't like that mindset. I don't like the mindset of just hoping something falls into your lap. If you want something, you go get it, and you don't stop until you get it. That's how I do things, and it's worked very, very well for me. So when I say persistent, it's almost annoying, is what I'm doing. So I am going constantly until I win that job. I will not stop until I win those jobs from that person. It's never ending. And so I'll do like letterbox shops in my local area, and I'll do like put magnets in people's letterboxes. And I'll do that 1 year, and then I'll do it the next year, and then I'll do it the next year, and then I'll do it the next year. I'm going to make sure that this area, whatever area I'm focusing on, I'm going to win all the jobs in that area. There's no hope about it. It's going to happen. It's just when it happens and how persistent I stay to be able to make sure it happens.
Mm.
Yeah,
you're building up subliminal trust. I think often in business, there is an incumbent provider of a service or a product, and for you to dislodge them, the new customer has to obviously let go of the incumbent and come to the new provider. And so they need to know that you're hungry, and they need to know that you have that tenacity, you want the business. Yep. Very interesting. Yeah. And it's, again, it's a long game. It's a long game, but business owners, I think, do need to practice the business development skills. And it's a muscle. You've got to keep working it. Yeah.
Yeah, you get nervous and anxious the first time you do it, and you feel uncomfortable. No one really likes to be in those sorts of situations where you're doing the one-on-one conversation and basically saying, hey, I really want work. Can you give me work? It does make you a bit uncomfortable, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and you become a lot more confident from doing it as well. I know when I'm selling my services, I'm selling myself as the best person for the job. That's what I sell. I'm the best person from the job. And that perception starts from the very first interaction with the client, which is why it was important for me to use a brand like Jim's Mowing, which is obviously the leader in the industry. So people already knew that we were the best at the job. And so all I'm doing is just following through with that, just going, this is why we're the best for the job. And I'm just little key touch points. So making sure that you're punctual and you're there. If you say that you're going to be there between 10 and 12, you're there between 10 and 10:05. Once you do a quote, you do the job straight away. Once you do the job straight away, you invoice the job straight away, and then you follow up with them to see if there's any more work that they want done. Hope doesn't come into it at all.
Yeah, process.
It is, and it's such a great mindset to have, because people are afraid to sell. Dan, we hear it from business owners all the time. They own a business, and then suddenly they need to sell their services. For you, you mentioned that, you will provide the best. How do you get into that mindset to know that you are actually the best, whether you're the best plumber, the best landscaper in the area, the best hairdresser? Is there anything that you did to prepare yourself to help you understand that you are, or is it just a belief?
Well, I think it's a big mental game, and I've learned this from my franchisees, because I can do it, I suppose, more naturally than what a lot of my franchisees can do it. And so what I do with them to be able to improve their confidence is, like, I would create Google business profiles for them all, and I would get them to all get over how many 5-star ratings to become literally the best in the area, like have the most star ratings in the area. So they would go, oh, I've got more 5-star ratings than anyone else on Google Business. I must be the best. So I try and use that as a mental game for them. But also I think that if you're charging the right price, then you can afford to spend the right amount of time that the job requires. So if you're too scared to quote the correct price, then you're gonna, and you've underquoted it, then you're naturally going to start cutting corners to be able to make a profit. So I always quote a price that I think is higher than most other people would do it. But I also know that my standard is going to be much higher than what other people would have as well. So I can afford to spend more time on the job to make sure that it's a perfect job every single time. And I don't cut corners anywhere. I'll never cut a corner. It's not part of who I am. There's always got to be a reason why you can do it the best way. And so, as I said, I make sure that I charge a really good price to be able to do a really good job. And my customers obviously knew that from me, which is why I was able to build the business as quickly as I did.
Mm.
And Dan, knowing your pricing, was that difficult at the beginning when you started Jim's Mowing, understanding what your time is actually worth?
It was, until you start working it out and you figure out what you're worth per hour at the time. So there should be a measurement for everything. So when I first started, I was doing all the jobs and I had no idea what I was doing. And then when you're mowing lawns, you've got a lot of time to think. Because all you're doing is just pushing this big machine up and down 20 times over for the front lawn and then 20 times over for the back lawn. You got a lot of time. So I had a lot of time to think about these things. And so what I did was I'd put my schedule together and I'd work out for the day how much I was earning, how long I was at each job for, and what my price per minute was for each job. And then I'd go, all right, well, this is what my value is right now. I'm selling my time to this person for this amount. So this is actually what I'm worth. Like, it's not what I think I'm worth. This is actually what I'm worth. And then I go, all right, well, now I know what I'm worth. I want to increase it from here. So I'd find the client that had the lowest price per minute that I was earning. So let's say I was at a job for $60 and it was an hour-long job. So I was worth $1 a minute at that point. And that would have been my lowest price per minute job that I had for the day. And what I would do is I'd go, all right, well, how do I make this job the highest price per minute job, or definitely not the lowest? And so I'd give that customer a price rise to whatever I felt that I was worth. So I slowly increased myself to the point where I become worth $1.50 a minute or $90 an hour. And then from there, I continued to increase my prices. And the way that I did it was I'd bring on 2 new regular clients and remove one of them. And from doing that, naturally, your price goes up because you're getting rid of the worst paying client. So, I eventually got to a point where all my regulars, I was worth $2 a minute as a minimum for my regular clients. And for my once-off jobs, I was worth $3 a minute.
Yeah. And this ability to measure things and almost a passion in measuring things, how much work do you have to put, how much teaching are you giving your franchisees in that approach to running their businesses?
Yeah, there's quite a fair bit, and it starts from the very start. So I teach at national office for the franchisees that want to build a business for all divisions. So I teach every single person that starts, and then all my franchisees from there on. I'm calling them weekly. I also have regional managers that call them weekly as well. 2 of them that both have over 10 years experience in Jim's Mowing, and I've obviously taught them all the stuff that I've learned. And I have my systems in place. So like I have a system for quoting, like exactly how to complete a quote from top to bottom. So I called it droplets F, which is it's an easy way to understand how to quote, which is D is don't delay, R is respond to the client, O is organize a quote, P is be punctual, L is listen to the client and ask questions, E is offer expert advice, T is thank the client, S is send the quote, make sure and then F is obviously make sure you follow up. So I create systems like that to be able to go, well, this is exactly how to complete a quote. Now you know how to do it, follow all those steps, and you'll be able to make sure it's perfect every time. So all my franchisees know that about me. I have formulas for every single type of service we provide and procedures for everything I do.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Dan, for anyone that's listening in now, entrepreneurs, startups that are thinking of exploring franchising like how you did, something similar to Jim's Mowing, do you have any advice for them?
I would say figure out if you're willing to take on that responsibility first. I think that's the most important thing. Are you able to get yourself out of bed in a reasonable time? And I think that's pretty easy to figure out. You set an alarm and figure out if you can actually get yourself out of bed, or if you're the sort of person that presses snooze. So that would be a really good way to figure out if you're going to get yourself out of bed to be able to go and do these jobs. And then I would probably say just try and improve every single week on what it is that you're doing. So that was my mindset from the very start. So I remember my first week, I made $3,600 for my very first week as a mowing contractor with Jim's Mowing. The second week, I made $3,650. There was no way in the world I was going to make less. It wasn't possible. And so that if you can constantly improving and putting your time towards it, you're going to do very well.
This is where the whole purpose comes into place, and having a vision and a mission. It really is what guides it. And, from the very beginning, you understood why you needed to do this. You obviously needed to make more money. And it's kind of driven you, making your wife happy, you're building a family, you want to spend more time with your children. Is that still the driving force even for you today? The family, wanting to be a great father?
It certainly is, absolutely. Every spare second I get, I spend with my kids and my wife. But I also know that I don't know what you guys think about this, but I also know that money is always worth more now than what it is later. So the value, if the money that I earn now, it's going to be harder to buy a house in the future because the prices are going to rise. So the value that I can put towards buying a house now would be much easier, for example. That's just one example. So if I'm working hard now, it's really going to benefit me a lot in the future because it's worth more now. So I go, well, while I'm young and while I'm motivated and while I'm, all excited about this, I better make some serious money right now so that I can relax later on. I remember someone told me that the average person makes $3 million in their lifetime. And I go, well, I'd like to do that too. I just want to do it a lot quicker than what anyone else does it.
And where do you see yourself in 5 years and 10 years down? What do you think that long ahead or?
Yeah, so in the next 5 years, a lot of my time is spent with my children at the moment. So I know I could push a lot harder than what I'm pushing now as a business owner, but I'm very careful not to sacrifice too much of my time to put it towards business when I could be spending that time with my kids during their childhood. I know that eventually, once my kids are older and they've moved out of home, that I'm going to go crazy on this. For the time being, I suppose I stick to a pretty good schedule that I have. I'd like to buy more regions in Jim's Mowing, and I think that I will. If I keep on the track that I'm going right now, I'll continue to buy more of it. My eventual goal is I'd like to buy all of Jim's Mowing. I've told that to Jim. He laughs, but he also knows I'm very serious.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I suppose that this is the passion that I have. I love lawn mowing. I love talking about lawn mowing. I love helping people grow lawn mowing businesses, and so I think that I'll probably continue doing this unless I can see a better opportunity come around. But we'll see.
And Dan, you can actually see we can hear the passion. I can almost see it through here. For me, it seems like what you do doesn't perhaps even feel like work because you love what you do and are so passionate in helping people grow. It isn't really work like as you were as a McDonald's manager before. Is that correct? Is that a correct assumption?
That's correct. Like in the position I'm in now, if I sold my business and my other mowing business and all that, like I would easily pay my house off and live a very nice, comfortable lifestyle. I know that I could already do that right now if I wanted to. But I don't, because I love what I do. And what would I do if I'm not doing this? So, you'd be sitting at home, twiddling your thumbs, watching TV shows. I don't want to do that. I love doing what I'm doing now. I know I could go and live that lifestyle right now if I wanted to, but this is my life. This is exactly how I want to be spending my life. I'm doing what I love.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I'm looking at the time, but before we hand over to you, Roger, to wrap up, Dan, I want to ask you for some final advice for our audience. If you could leave our audience with 3 pieces of advice based on your incredible and inspirational entrepreneurial journey, what would be 3 things you would leave them with?
So first one is, if it's for business owners, is that right?
Business owners, correct.
People wanting to buy a business, yep. So create high demand in your business. Try and do whatever it takes. So market like a lot. Like it's really, really important to do a lot of local area marketing in your business to be able to create high demand. Once you have that, then you're able to then have freedom within your business and pick and choose your clients, put your prices up, bring on employees, buy better equipment, whatever it is. So I would recommend doing that. I would also say work hard now so you don't have to work as hard later on, because it's always going to be hard to work harder later on. Your money's not worth as much later on. You're older, you're more tired. So if you work harder now, then you can relax later, and also obviously build up a large bank, which gives you a lot more freedom, a lot more. I suppose you're just happier when you have money behind you as well. There's a lot less stresses. So if you're going to work hard, do it now, and then eventually, I do like delegating. So then you can eventually bring on an employee and delegate the work out to them. And then I would also say just always try and improve on whatever it is that you're doing week by week, or day by day, or whatever it is, but always try and find a way to improve and have that sort of mindset where you want to always do better. I suppose if you're doing what you love, that will naturally happen anyways.
I love it. What amazing advice to everyone. I've learned so much from you in this hour. I have no doubt that our audience has as well. And Roger, I'm going to hand it over to you to wrap up this amazing chat.
Thank you, Natalie. Here we go. It's always difficult to wrap up after a fast hour. Thoroughly enjoyed the time with you, Dan. I mean, Dan Cahill, the high school dropout, the guy with poor computer skills, and now an incredibly successful business owner. I mean, Dan's a supreme over preparer. We can see the post-it notes and the person who really needs processes to help drive a business performance. Dan's a great delegator, learned that the hard way by going through some sort of burnout type experiences, and now steadfastly sticks to delegating. He's a big believer in the power of positivity, how you build confidence in your team and your employees or your franchisees. the importance of working hard on getting your employees into that really good mental state. Dan's pushed himself to become the best manager he could. I love those words. Not many people say that. And we can tell from the short story of 10, 12 years, you've got a lot of time ahead of you, Dan, but we can see how that has led to your success. Dan doesn't believe in luck. And he's also got this lovely balance, I think, with a strong partnership with his wife, who helps to keep him on track. Very important, I think, for all business leaders to find that balance in their lives and to have someone alongside them or nearby them who can help in that regard. So big believer in continuous learning. And also, I think very importantly, there is Dan the salesman. Probably was not instinctively the salesman as a younger man, but has understood the need to sell the service or the product that your business is putting forward and to work really hard and persistently. And I love this notion of contact marketing. When you've plowed all the fields, it does start to give back to you over time. So I think some great lessons there for any small business owner. This real bias towards repeat business, letting go of some of the one-off spot business. Repeat business is creamy business. You can think of the lifetime value of a customer in Dan's world, where they'll have their lawns mowed for 5, 10, 15 years. And this is a very important relationship that's being fostered. Understand the power of building confidence in people. I just say that again. I think you cannot do it on your own. Again, Dan's learned that and really does live that way of operating right now. Understands premium pricing or good pricing. You don't have to be super expensive, but you certainly don't want to be the cheapest in business if you're providing really the best service in your area. A real penchant for measuring. If you don't measure things in business, you really cannot manage them or improve them. And obviously this continuous improvement does require measurement in a business. The formula, I won't try and repeat droplets F, but Dan has a formula for things that he knows are important in his businesses and sticks to them in a disciplined fashion. And I love the ambition that Dan still has to take the business to the next level. Dan's Mowing one fine day in the future when Jim's in the history books or whatever. But that ambition is, again, it's fuel and it keeps you moving every day. So wonderful to spend time with you, Dan and Natalie. Great conversations, and I'm sure some really good learnings for our clients out there.
Thank you very much for having me, guys.
Dan, it's been a wonderful hour. Great summary, by the way, Roger. It's always difficult to, summarize a whole hour, but that was brilliant. So thank you. And really good. But it's been incredible, Dan. I've learned a lot, as I mentioned before. So thank you very much for your time. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. For more information on Leader Talk and for some great resources to help your business grow, check out brainiact.com.au. Bye, everyone.
Bye.